Hi, we're from Group 7 and we're going to be discussing overtourism in Barcelona. Today we're going to be talking about tourism in Barcelona as a whole, the factors that contribute to the increase in overtourism, some potential solutions we've come up with, and how COVID-19 has impacted the industry. So overtourism is when there are too many visitors in a particular destination, but this can be relative to each destination and how much is considered too many for them and their environment. So this has been on the rise because the industry as a whole has been focusing a lot on the positive impacts of tourism without taking into account how it's negatively impacting the community.
So now for the history of over-tourism in Barcelona. So in the rise of tourism in Barcelona is mostly accounted by the 1992 Olympic Games that were hosted there, which led to large crowds in the city and allowed people to discover the city. Also, around 9.5 million tourists stayed in hotels in Barcelona in 2019. And pre-COVID, there were around 32 million annual visitors, which about half of these were day trippers. So they're not really spending a lot of money in the local community. Rather, they're spending their money on these main tourist attractions. And tourist spending accounts for nearly a fifth of the revenue that's generated by the commercial sector of the city. The main role of over-tourism in Barcelona has been that it's diminishing the quality of life of the local residents and prioritizing the needs of the tourists. This can be seen in the local artisan shops being converted into souvenir shops. Also, the local markets are producing food to cater to the tourists rather than the local community. And one of the main issues has been flats being turned into temporary housing for visitors. Also, drunken tourism is a major issue, especially in Barcelona. And there have been many protests as a result of these factors, and these protests are aimed at the authorities and businesses which are not regulating tourism properly.
There are five main global contributing factors to over-tourism. The first one is cheap travel, where the airlines are becoming a lot less expensive, which is making the flights more accessible to the whole population rather than just the upper class. This also has to do with demographics because the middle class has been growing ever since the baby boomer generation, which is making there a larger portion of the population that is able to afford flights, cruise ships, and other forms of travel. And then the third factor is the travel writing, which can include blogs and social media posts, which has increased in appeal to certain hotspots. And this increased appeal has made these spots honeypot sites, which means that the same places are visiting at the same time or being visited the same time each year by an influx of tourists. And then the fourth factor is that the houses that the local people normally reside in are being turned into these home sharing concepts, which pushes out the local people because of the tourists being or driving up the price of rent. And then lastly, the large cruise liners are allowing thousands of visitors to enter a certain city at one period of time. And this short period of time, these travelers are in the city, they aren't likely to spend a lot of money, and this harms the community and provides very few benefits. And these cruise liners are also a lot more accessible nowadays. And then this is a quote that has to do with over-tourism.
And then these are some of the areas globally that have been struggling with over-tourism. And then the next slide talks about the solutions that can be implemented in some of these sites. So technology's influence on society is overwhelming and can be used to create positive travel solutions. Social media can be used to quickly spread information, and artificial intelligence can be used to implement crowd control and take monitoring and response measures for overpopulated areas. Data can also be measured in real time and connect tourists to smarter and more efficient travel methods. And there are also websites to inform tourists on sustainable travel methods. And then Society's perspectives are often shifting and people are becoming more aware and willing to learn about sustainable traveling methods. And COVID-19 has also made people more likely to listen to rules and regulations so that travel can be possible. And then super blocks are shared spaces that are used to reclaim the streets, reduce noise levels and environmental pollution, and foster a sense of community in some of these overpopulated areas. And then these are some of the numbers that we have collected to show that COVID-19's impact on global tourism.
Tourism during COVID-19, we have seen a lot of places go from one extreme to another. Where the streets used to be crowded with hustle and bustle, we now see silence because there's a lot more rules and regulations in terms of travel. So we've seen kind of a switch into more less populated areas, such as taking a camping trip or an RV trip. And we've also seen places like hotels combat COVID-19 by lowering rent prices for hotel rooms, such as going from 600 euros. Okay. Some of the positives of COVID-19 is that people are not being irresponsible when they travel and they're taking time to follow the rules and regulations because they cherish the leisure time that we have now. And we've also seen places like Barcelona clamp down on vacation rentals, and introducing a tourism tax and also encouraging tourists to visit areas outside of what used to be the hot spots, and they plan to keep these initiatives intact too after COVID. And so we think that this is a way for not only over tourism to be combated, but also COVID so that we can continue to travel.